Hey, welcome back to the Radium Records channel. I'm Bradley Deniston. This is part 3 of breaking down my song, All My Love. We got a retro pop song, indie soul kind of vibes, lots of live instrumentation, lots of plugins, lots of vocal stacks. And that's what I'm gonna be breaking down in this part 3 is the vocals, what's going on with the vocals, and also the master chain and some mixing techniques. Try to give you guys as much value as possible. Let's dive right in. Before we dive in, you know the drill. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, especially if you're on part 3 of this series. Come on now. All right, I'm gonna be bringing you a lot of game on music production, mixing, mastering, even just like music business stuff on this channel. I do live song reviews, lots of cool stuff for you guys. I've been doing this for 25 plus years. Emmy, Grammy, Oscar nominated work, platinum records under my belt, and I'm just here to help you guys out. So hit the sub button. Show some love. Let's dive into these vocals. What do we got going on? We got an intro vocal, which is doing like a vocalise thing. We have the lead vocal on the verse. We have a lead on the chorus. We have 2 doubles, left and right on the chorus. And then we have low harmony left and right on the chorus. And then we have high harmony left and right on the chorus. And then we also have some high harmony spot kind of vocals going on here. And then on the outro chorus, we have a ton of different vocals doing oohs and ahs and all that good stuff to make it nice and big, but also just to amp up things as we go along in the song, which is a really important part of this song. Let's hear these intro vocals. All right, so this is really like another instrument texture. I have the virtual mix rack and we got the FG73. I like the drive on this. The input drive on the FG73 sounds better than any other plugin that does this thing with the 1073 kind of clone. FG116 doing some compression. Metatune, of course, on the vocal tuning. And I like Metatune. After I record, I put it on the note stabilizer, and sometimes I'll do like short, mid, or long. On this one, it's just none. So that deactivates the note stabilizer, so I don't even know why it's on, right? But whatever, you know, sometimes you do weird shit when you're composing and producing and trying to mix and do everything yourself. Now we got a little bit of EQ here to kind of take care of that boominess, kind of de-esser. Don't really need that for an ooh, but it's there. Probably a copied down chain, to be honest with you. This is where the effects happen, and I think a lot of the vibe happens, is which with this H3000 Factory, one of my favorite plugins of all time for doing chorusing and doubling effects. And this is on the 231 micro pitch shift, and then I blended this in 45%. Sometimes I'll mess around with the pitch amount, the percentage here on the left and right. And that'll just give you more or less of the kind of weird pitch on the left and right, which kind of makes it wider sometimes as well, or too pitchy, right? So it's a fine balance. Valhalla Vintage Verb, one of my favorites, of course. Everybody uses the Valhalla. I mean, come on, nothing new here. But I have it on the plate on the now setting, and I pay attention a lot to this dampening part of the plugin. I don't think this is talked enough about on the Valhalla, but this bass mult, this is really, really important. The bass mult scales the reverb decay time for bass frequencies relative to the decay parameter. Super important. So if you're at 3.55 seconds on your decay overall on your reverb, you can scale up the bass, which means any of these frequencies that you can sweep through, you can scale them up by 4 times. So taking that and scaling up those bass frequencies into the reverb can change the color quite a bit. So a lot of the times I find this at like 1.5 or something on defaults. I'll take this down, right? Because this is the mid-range. You can also, if you have something that's really dark and almost getting cloudy with your reverbs, you can go into where that cloudiness might be and you can take this down. So it actually makes less of that happen in the reverb decay time. So really important. I just have this up a little bit and it was at like 1K where the vocal kind of sits, right? So that's where the that part is. And then following it up, I don't just have one reverb, I have 2 reverbs on this. And this really washes it out and gives it a real vibe, is the AMS reverb, the RMX16. I love this reverb. I think it sounds insanely beautiful. I've used the actual hardware units quite a bit, but they always get fucked up. They always need servicing. So this UAD plugin is the next best thing to having a hardware unit of this reverb. We got to talk about the lead vocals on the verse. This is my vocal going through the 103. Okay, so this is the TLM 103. It's a transformerless microphone by Neumann. It is, I think, about $1,500 after taxes and everything. And I've used this mic for decades now. So over 20 years I've used this mic. And this mic itself is really, really clean with a really low self noise. And that's the part that I like because I can color the hell out of it. So I got the drive up on the FG73. I got some compression, the Metatune, of course, the Pro Q3 sweeping out the bottom, DS, another EQ. This is where I start to get a little bit more surgical. I cut out a little bit of the low mids that get a little in your face because I get proximity effect with this microphone in that area. So if I'm really close to it like this, I get more of that 600 to 800 area that like peaks up a little bit. So I dip that a little bit. Also, this microphone's hard. It's kind of hard to control sometimes on the 2K to like 6K area. The sibilance happens for me and my voice around the 5500 area. So I use the Pro DS for that. And then again, we have the H3000. This is just blending in though, very little, 13%, which really helps it sit in the track. Let me play this actually so you can hear what this does because it's actually really, really cool what it can do with just a little bit of this effect. So here's the verse vocal coming in.
Give you all my love. You don't feel it, it's just not enough. It's always all or none. I don't see it, I'm just out of touch.
It just glues right into the track. And that's what I love about this plugin. I'll overdo it a little bit. I'll really crank up the percentage so you can hear the effect, but I back it off until I don't hear it, but I feel it kind of set into the track. That's a really important part of my workflow with this plugin specifically. So there's a lot more ways to EQ a vocal than to just turn on an EQ and start taking stuff out or peaking stuff up. I think that's a really amateur way to EQ, to be honest with you. I'm not talking down on anyone. I just think that that's what you do when you first start mixing or trying to make your vocals sound good. You're like, oh, EQ, everything EQ. But once you start realizing there's chorusing plugins, doublers, there's compressors that have tones, there's all these different plugins that add EQ and take away or add things, right? So even a de-esser can take away quite a bit of frequencies and harshness. Soothe 2, the Curves Equator plugin from Waves, those can do quite a bit for resonant frequencies and peaks. And, you know, reverb can make your EQ really different as well, whether you use a dark reverb or a bright reverb and the return EQ cut. And, you know, it's just a lot going on when you start to use different effects. So again, I have the Valhalla Vintage Verb on this lead vocal, but you'll notice the mix is down, the decay time is down, and the bass molt is down a little bit. And then we have a different EQ curve here where I'm just cutting down to 88, 30 and low cut, which is really like a high pass at like 170. So that's on the plate setting with a 33.2 millisecond pre-delay, which gives it this space. And then that feeds again into the UAD AMS. So let's take off these three last plugins and you lose the indie soul. You all of a sudden have this really dry.
Give you all my love. You don't feel it, it's just not enough. It's always all or none. I don't see it, I'm just out of touch. But is it true? Nobody ever makes it out alive. Is it you?
Oh, that AMS is really beautiful. It's this ambiance setting, and you can go in here and nudge it up and down on wetness, but I'm basically feeding this reverb directly into the next reverb. And I'm trying to get this kind of cloudy vocal going that's really kind of smeared in. I like that. That's what I'm going for. Also, I have some hard tuning on some things as well with Melodyne. Just little parts like the true, you know, and the you. because I want those to play more like an instrument. And a lot of people will go, oh, I don't like that in soul music, but I get to do whatever the fuck I want to do, right? This is my song. So I can make it more indie soul. I can make it more retro. I can, you know, mess around with tones and tuning and all that. And I'm going to, if I want to. If it feels right, do it. That's my best advice to anyone producing music, mixing music, etc. Now, this is going to a vocal mix bus, which is hitting this Tube Tech SMC 2B, which is an amazing multi-band compressor that has so much sauce going on it. Basically, you have the crossover here, right? On the, what is this? The high and then the low crossover, right? So this is like these bands that you're compressing. So you have high, mid, low compression. And you have the ratios, they're different. The attacks are different. The releases are different, but it's blended in at 70%. It's not 100%. So let's turn that off and just play this back. So that just kind of pushes it forward a little bit, makes it stand to attention. It's a Tube Tech, so it's a tube compressor in multiband. Amazing. Love it. And then the Mixwave Electrodyne again. 511, which is actually a really fun one to blend in. So I have this at 500 with 3 dB and at the top 10K with about 2 dB, and I'm blending it in just 23%. It's just a little bit to make the vocal kind of pop and stand up a little bit. So bypassing these two and bringing them back in sounds like this. I think that just gives it a little bit more soul, a little bit more girth. Got to keep it girthy, boys and girls. I don't know if I should be using that adjective, but you know, girthy, thick. All right, and then let's go to the chorus vocals, because this is where I kind of get into some vocal production stuff. So we got the lead vocal, which is pretty much the same chain. The only thing that's different is I turn on this bad boy. And this really just pushes the mid-range a little bit more because I have the distortion on. And that's all it is. Iron distortion in the mid-range focus with flux up and distortion up, and then the tone pushing a little bit on the mids. And the magnitude's not even 100%, but that's the difference on this lead vocal on the chorus. And then let's get into what the doubles and everything are doing. So here are the vocals. I'm gonna mute everything and kind of bring them in one at a time. Hopefully that'll help you guys understand what's going on. So let's mute all these and just play the lead vocal here.
Go ask your heart. How do we survive life? All a big surprise, yeah.
All right, so that's the lead vocal, and it's really warmer. It's much warmer than the lead vocal on the verse because I have doubles, harmonies, etc. And I don't want that vocal to be all shiny and polishy and then add all the other vocals and like then it's too shiny and polishy. You know, we are still trying to be in this soulful world. So keep it kind of tape, you know, distorted and rounded off and retro sounding. Here are the doubles popped in with the lead vocal.
Go ask your heart.
All right, so now we get this like thick, you know, the middle, and like you get a little bit more of the mid-range coming through as well. And then we have the harmonies here, which are, these are lower harmonies. So they sound like this soloed out.
Go ask your heart. How do we survive life?
The low harmonies make me feel like, it's like, oh man, this is heavy, dude. It's a heavy statement. Go ask your heart. How do we survive? You know, like, why don't you go ask your heart? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So it takes two. You can't be in love with someone if they're not in love with you. You know, you got to really like have them figure it out. So it's like a big question to ask. And you know, putting that low thing in there is kind of like moody, right? And the panning here is pretty important as well. I go 30 on left and right on the doubles, and then I go 35, just a little bit wider on those lower harms. And now let's hit these higher ones, because these are the ones where we get up an octave on the high harm.
Go ask your heart. How do we survive life on a big surprise?
Yeah, so this is where I get my Bee Gees on, you know what I'm saying? So we get into those high harmonies. You can see I turned off a couple things as well, because with the high harmonies, I want the high part to be more specific and precise. So I turned off, especially with pitch and stuff, I turn off the H3000 and the RC20, because I do want the high end in there. I do want the breath, the, you know, you want to hear that. That's like human to the ear, that breath, that, you know, it's like someone's talking really close to your ear. So I keep those little breathy, kind of high-end top stuff in there. And then we just have these high harm spots, right? So these are just little spot doubles or spot harmonies here. That's it, just stacking that up to kind of emphasize just that little part. And then the end part here as well on the high harmony. And then this last vocal that's kind of interesting. It's an interesting texture to add. But here are the high harmony spots.
Dreams of you in someone else's life. Dreams of you in someone else's life. Dreams of you in someone else's life. Dreams of you in someone else's life.
So that's all cool, right? And I was like, oh, that's great. But then I was like, it's missing something. And so I hit this vocal here that's kind of really phasey and weird and kind of goes back to blending the indie with the soul, the retro with the soul, kind of funky sampled stuff, and tying together the vocals with the messed up keyboards and all that stuff, the sound design stuff.
Dreams of you in someone else's life. Dreams of you in someone else's life.
And that just made it feel a little bit more intense on that phrase, because that's a big phrase, right? Dreams of you in someone else's life. It's like, whoa, dude. Yeah, that's heavy again. So we want to emphasize those heavy moments. And that's how I do it with vocal production. Now I'm going to take you through the end vocals as well, because this last chorus is where things get stacked up even more, where we hit these oohs. And this is where we got these guys going on. Right, then we get these really dramatic, like, desperate vocal cries, right? And this is important, I think, to any song. If you want to up the emotion, you don't just stack new things in. You do things differently. Like, be more emotional. Really, it's like, it's all in the performance. Let's be real. So you sit here and you cut a vocal until you really feel it. And if you don't really feel it and you don't go like, man, I really feel that. Like, God damn. If you don't think that way, you need to recut the vocal. You need to keep recutting it. And if you can't do it in that session that you're in, you need to step away and you need to figure out why you don't feel it. And if you're not in that mood, then you need to be in that mood to cut that vocal. That's really how I think nowadays, especially. So that's what I got going on. Here's all the vocals together on the end.
Go ask your heart. How do we survive life? All the big surprise. Yeah.
All right, so I didn't feel like we could just use and loop the other chorus. So I recut everything here, right? And these parts, especially these doubles, these are new doubles completely. A lot of these vocals on the end are completely different than the other chorus vocals because it's a different performance. There's different instruments going on. And that's how I make the song a little bit more dynamic and not so, you know, pop cookie cutter, if you will. So these vocals right here are really important to the end chorus.
Holding you real tight. It's not the love you had in mind. Rolling in my head, dreams of you and holding you real tight. It's not the love you had in mind. Rolling in my head, dreams of you and someone else's life. Holding you real tight. It's not the
one vocal that was actually muted that I want to show you because this is an important vocal to the end. It's just a little ad lib, last kind of final cry. This needs to be like the ballad, you know, the ballad in what I've been releasing. And I wanted to do a ballad. I wanted to do something serious. And this vocal right here is like the last cry. I'll just play it for you. Right? That's just going up. And the whole idea of the vocals on the chorus are to go fall down, right? So it's go ask your heart, right? You're just falling down. You know, it's a very effective method when you're talking about something that like feels like it's falling down, you know? If it was rising up, it would feel epic and glorious, but I don't want that because everything else is kind of already epic, I guess, if that makes sense at the end here especially. So this is like, go ask your, like, and then we go up even higher here. This one is going up into the higher register here. Right, so we go up to that B. So we're going B, A, and we're just running down the scale. So that's kind of a fun one. I don't know. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit more filtered out, so it's kind of in the back. When you want things to be in the back and you want it to be deeper in the mix, you need to roll off the top, right? We hear things directional in the top, in the high mids, in the sparkly, right? Because that's like direct. But if something's indirect or it's in the back, it's usually muffled, right? Hey, I'm over here. I'm way out here. You know, you don't hear the top end. You don't hear the sibilance and all that. So you just take down the top end, you know? That's all I'm doing here. Take down the top end there. And the retro color is doing a lot of that as well. So that's it. That's all the vocals right there. You saw the vocal mix bus, everything. Now, last thing I want to show you in this video is the master bus and how simple it is. Because I think people think, oh, there's a bunch of stuff on your master bus. Like, nah, not much. There is the gold clip. There is the Gullfoss and the God particle. That's it. Like straight up gold clip, Gullfoss, and the God particle. And the limiter's at 8.5. We're not doing crazy amounts of limiting or anything. But on the gold clip, we're just clipping the very top of the peaks, right? We're doing a little bit of the gold and a little bit of alchemy. Now I had the updated version of this gold clip that goes to 2 dB. So I'm at like 1.06. I use that 0.06, you know what I'm saying? Gave it the extra sauce. But yeah, very, very simple. Here, I'll play this back so you can hear how it's hitting or see how it's hitting. I mean, the gold clip is doing a lot. It's like congealing and just giving it that record feel. And I am barely trimming the peaks on the hard clipping here. The gold's doing work and the alchemy's doing work. The alchemy is like tape machine compression just on the high end. So it's just perfect for this kind of vibe. And then the Gullfoss is opening things up, you know, taking care of taming resonance and bringing up stuff that's not there that needs to be there. So this bypassed in and out kind of, it separates everything. So check it out. It's like a hi-fi, right? You got the lows and the highs kind of coming up, which is incredible, that plugin. And of course, the heavy lifting is the God particle, where we have 85% on the actual, you know, particle part, which is like kind of harmonic distortion, really. And little tiny bit of EQ taking down the bottom 0.7 dB and then limiting. You can see all my processes are very small and subtle when it comes to the master bus. I don't do really heavy master bus processing anymore. I used to when I first started mixing and mastering, right? But I learned quickly that it doesn't need all that. And especially something like this, it needs to feel organic. And I really love the God particle for that because it feels organic. It's a really musical sounding plugin. All of these plugins are very musical. The gold clip, the Gullfoss, and the God particle all together is like a great winning combo. And I'll bypass in and out on this. It's going to be hard because the gain is going to change quite a bit because you have 8.5 dB of limiting. But here it is.
How do we survive? All the big surprise, yeah. Holding
And that's it, y'all. That is like everything. If you guys have any questions at all about anything else, drop them in the comments. I'm happy to answer any questions. You can also click the link in the description and stream the song, you know, if you like it. Show some love in the comments. If you got something out of the video, share the video, you know, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I'll keep bringing you guys all the free game. All right. I'll see you guys next time. I hope you enjoyed it. Peace.